Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Reinventing Finance podcast. As usual, I'm not here all by myself. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to Ron, who was taking the time today as well. Ron, how are you today?
Hi, it's mega cold today in Vienna. I hope the weather is a little bit nicer over there in Hamburg, but I'm looking forward to today's show.
Likewise, today we've not only have one guest, we have two guests, Mark and Chris from Assista Pilot, and want to welcome you on our virtual humble abode. Mark and Chris, how are you today?
Very
Doing
good.
great.
Hi, Nick. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. So why don't we just kind of take it from the top? Why don't you guys briefly introduce yourself and what you do, who you are, and how that relates to the topic of today's conversation, namely AI agents in insurance.
Sure. No problem. Maybe I go first. So, hi everyone. Thanks first of all for the invitation and that we can do this podcast together. My name is Mark. I'm a co-founder of Assista Pilot. This is an insurance sort of environment here. So I really come from a long-standing insurtech background. I held various positions in various companies in the area of sales, business development, operations, and more. And yeah, the today's topic is AI agents, right? So Assista Pilot is doing exactly that. We are building AI agents that automate workflows, and since we are in the insurance area, we want to maybe zoom in a little bit into Claims Pilot, which is our flagship solution in the insurance vertical, and is basically, running claims processes from first notice of loss to a decision-ready file. The agent understands the terms and conditions, can interpret the policy like a human, validate the claim, and ultimately is delivering the claim on a silver platter to the claims handler. And yeah, as a practical result, we get fast turnaround times, lower handling costs, fewer customer contacts, and important is, I believe, for us to understand that AI in this context is assisting the claims handler and is not here to replace them. That's myself and Assista Pilot in a nutshell. Over to you, Chris.
Hi everyone. I'm Chris, the counterpart of Mark here. I'm primarily responsible of product and technology. So my background over the past 15 years, been working a lot with startups, interfacing between tech teams and C-level executives, and enabling them to leverage technology, which is what I want to try to do today. I believe a lot in normalizing conversations and using simple terms to explain complex topics, and I'll hope to be able to convert that. Specifically in Assista Pilot, I'm more of the how department. So how do we use the agent? How do we implement the solutions? How do we integrate with the existing systems, with legacy systems, with voice, with users, and so on? And I'd love to expand a bit more on this as we go through the conversation now with Ron and Nikolaus.
Awesome. Maybe before we let's go maybe two steps back and then we zoom in back. So could you just for the sake of this conversation, could you give us like a definition of what an AI agent is and if it's helpful, how is that different from me talking to ChatGPT, a custom GPT, whatever, an N8N automation, I don't know, lots and lots of things floating around on my LinkedIn timeline. There's some things we use ourselves, but just for the sake, you can define the term for the sake of this conversation. It doesn't need to stand the test of time.
I wouldn't say it's different from everything you mentioned earlier. The key idea behind an agent is that it's able to take actions. So basically, the agent can connect to different tools, different ways of doing actions. And the simplest way to look at it is whatever today you try to do as a person, whether you're click on a button, getting data from a database, talking to a client, all of these actions could be replicated by an agent This agent has obviously a limited scope and limited source of information, if you want, that they use to provide the most optimal reaction to what you're doing. And so that's why when we initially started the GPT, which was primarily generative AI, it was using the knowledge base that you have and reacting to the inputs of the user. As this evolved, the agent allow you to interact with tools or with other agents and to create an organism that build these responses for you.
Okay.
Let's make this a little bit more specific for like simple people like myself. You already mentioned claims pilot, right, Mark? That is your core product. And why am I super curious about today's show is because automating FNOL and at least how to get all the data, this is something we have started with here. And this is something I talk to Nick a lot about. But what I'm hearing from you, Chris, is, well, it is a bit of a different thing, right? I would quote ours. Yes, that is, we experimented a little bit with N8 and with Manos. That's more like a simple chatbot, but you have production grade products, right? So what is the difference? And also for the people listening in, what are the different levels, right? Is it Farmers League? And what is the difference here between our Farmers League, maybe at the moment still, and your Champions League?
So I'll try to clarify this a bit more. Today, let's say you have a form, right? So you go into the website, you put in email password, you authenticate, you fill in a few fields. These fields get mapped to your record at the insurance company. So this process here, whether it's on the authentication level or on the accessing data from the system, is being done by a code, right? By a function. And this function is not AI generated. This function is actually a call to the database. What the AI agent here is responsibility is to do is to say, oh, based on what Ron told me now, I need to take this action. And so the action, or what we call here tools, is what the agent is doing. So the agent is provided with a set of the toolkit, if you want, a tool set that they can pick from based on the guidance or the pre-definition you give them, what we today call mostly, the prompt. So you say that you're responsible of processing claims. You can go and check in the data of the customer, their previous claims, request from them, anything related to the TNC, and converts with them.
And what is then the difference to what we know under RPA? The robots who've done certain tasks, but rule-based, is that the same thing or is that entirely different?
No, so the difference is that the rule-based is very deterministic. So you have very clear input, clear output. And the difference here is that you have more flexibility and you have a much different flow. So again, when we take the example of a conversation here, I could be saying anything to you and you have to adapt and react to it, which is not what you have in a preset flow. Sometimes you don't know the answer, and this is something we saw a lot with hallucination, is that sometimes the LLM responds anything it needs just to get you some answer. And that's also a part of, when you say production grade system, where you have to create this whole environment, these guardrails, this
structured forms versus free flow PDFs. In the second case, the RPA would suffer, but you excel.
We deliver. Yes, I mean Excel is
Yes.
exactly. That's kind of the space where we're in.
Is it also fair to say that it might actually be a blend, right? So you would get you could get the agent to do unstructured information and an agent to make decisions, an agent to then decide whether they can move this forward and pre-populate this into whatever authenticate via an API call, but at some point, someone might decide, a lawyer might decide, we want to have a clear record of someone actually submitting the claim. That point then kind of feeds into a more deterministic flow that is prepared, so that these things, that in case there isn't an API, which I know, Ron, not in your organization, but in some insurance organizations, not everything is natively accessible through REST APIs on any given level. So that one tool might actually be called in RPA that then is deterministically going through certain fields because it's more accurate or cheaper or already there, or you name it. That it's basically the kind of, the way I think about AI is around, I would say, maybe like three things, unstructured information, making decisions, but then also just kind of providing the fuzzy glue wherever a fully deterministic model is just too complicated to do. And you're kind of getting faster inputs with that shot out, and then maybe a human in the loop after, rather than trying to give the entire deterministic model.
Yes. So just to recap on this, there's different players in the game today. You have the humans, you have the AI, and then you have the deterministic functional programming.
Yep.
And the right blend between the three is what makes things work. On a production level, for example, you're accessing data that comes from huge tables. Sometimes you have to bring these data together, join them, and filter them and search through them. All of this is not the expertise of an LLM, but this is the expertise of a properly written SQL query or database call. Similarly, like you mentioned also earlier, and something we've seen in a real case situation, where you cannot afford to call the APIs. You have to go on a lower level, where you have to go and access run the query directly, access the data, and pre-format them. So all of these things are the programmatic part of the component. And the agent would sit on top of that and use these functionalities available to it to collaborate. And that's exactly where we sit in here with Mark, is that we don't do the agent alone. The agent alone is powerless. You have to train the agent, provide them with the sword and the shield and the equipment that they need to go to fight for you and to bring things forward.
Awesome. I think, and I appreciate that whole conversation could take us like hours and hours, but for me, I think that's an okay definition to kind of move forward, and hopefully we've clarified a few things and didn't lose too many
I would
listeners.
have just one
Of
single
course.
question, because out of my daily needs and so what, and that brings us probably in the direction you also like to go. If we talk again about this claims pilot, I would love to take this as an example because it makes just things clearer, more plastic. So you chose for your main product, your main agent, to take not like the LLMs. They say, well, we help you in everything you throw at us. You have it like vertical with very deep domain, but you sacrifice a lot of other use cases you can do with it. So what was behind that, and what's the advantage and maybe the disadvantage of something so focused, so specialized?
I'm just gonna, just to clarify the compromise part. So here, when you're creating your agent and you're saying that your claims management agent and your role is to support this customer, then we provide them with a list of tools. We can tell them you can check the records of that user, you can validate the policy, you can validate the expiry. You can also see what the total amount of claims they raised. You can compare this with other claims to be more, to be kind of in a safe zone. So you don't restrict it per se. The more tools you offer to it, the more flexibility they have. But on the other side, your use cases. You know that he's not going to ask for the weather, so there's no need to know about the weather. In that case, we're giving this agent a bit more clarity, so that they hallucinate or they get lost a bit less. So the idea is to kind of understand your ecosystem, understand what you could do and what your users could be doing, and provide them with all the tools they can have at their disposition.
Before we jump into the claims use case. Just one, why did you pick, and maybe that's a different way of asking the same question that Ron, why did you select claims and not, I don't know, customer service or underwriting triage, or you name it? There's different aspects of the insurance value chain there where you have unstructured data and decisions and lots of manual input. What was the logic behind that might also help someone else who are kind of going, yep, we want to do AI agent, but rather than do claims because we have to claims, if you put your kind of, let's say, on a golf course to say, listen, this is how I would make a decision around which area to focus on, and maybe even, and I'll let you decide how you would give the three arguments for picking the area.
Sure. I guess really it started with obviously now the AI technology is evolved enough to actually approach these kind of areas and automate these very complex processes on the one side. On the other side is, so obviously all the big insurtech companies, everybody is focusing on easy integrations, on focusing on, I don't know, dynamic pricing and sales. But at the end of the day, they're not really focusing on customer centricity, customer experience when they actually need the insurance in case of claim. And previous to founding Assista or working on this particular project, I've been working for an insurtech that predominantly sold parametric insurances. And for anybody who doesn't know it, but for parametric insurance products, you don't really need a claims process. When there's a certain scenario becoming reality, you would be compensated automatically. And me as the person who was selling the proposition to distribution partners, who then sold it to end customers, the fact that you don't have a claim was extremely powerful in selling. And I think it's just like a good constellation and the right timing that we said, okay, you know what? Let's enable all insurance products to have an almost instant resolution and get rid of this pain that you have whenever you actually need the insurance, right? You have a problem and you think you have insurance, and then they make it really, really complicated to help you. So that's absolutely frustrating, right? So that's the one point, a little bit of inspiration why we did this. And then claims as well, because it has the highest impact on operational metrics. You may be able to optimize like an insurance portfolio and the performance of the insurance portfolio, loss ratios by quoting a tiny bit more accurate, assessing the risk a little bit better, taking more historic data into consideration, etc. But that's only going to move the needle a bit. But claims, really, that's where you get the most out of it from a customer experience perspective, but also from a cost perspective, because you can really reduce the claims cost by like 95% almost.
And it's a super multifaceted area, right? You have communication, you have data capture, you have the assessment of the claims, you have reserving, all this.
Yes.
I would be more interested, but Nick just raised.
I just wanted to.
You want to jump in
because I want to see whether I can get behind the claim that you can reduce claims cost by 95%. I believe you mean claims management cost, not the loss ratio.
No.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. Just
that would be great.
No. I was just gonna go like, yeah, got it.
We can yes. No, we're talking claims administration costs. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Understood.
And we probably most started with the interaction part, right? You have a chatbot, you get all the data in there, and the data you get, you have an OCR on this and have everything, and then it sticks. But you don't end there. So I would be interested to understand more about how you help with all the back office processes.
Yes.
And which ones, of course, because I also want to learn from this podcast, which ones are the worst, where you say, well, this is not just inefficient. This just doesn't make sense the way they do it right now.
Yes. I mean, really, the way they do it right now is, I would say, almost horrible, and it's super
So
broken
there's
as
hope. It's
well.
only almost.
It's almost horrible, yes. No, so here's an example that actually happened after we have started looking into building claims in and Assista pilot, and it's a real life example that happened to me. So I actually had a travel cancellation claim. I have a credit card with a neobank that, as everybody knows, has a travel cancellation benefit included. And this was really a wake-up call that we are on the right track. It was the confirmation that we do something that is actually needed. So I booked a family holiday. My wife got sick. We were not able to travel, so we had to cancel. I started the claim in app, which was already great. So I felt like, yeah, it's modern and digital, but that was just the first 2% of the entire claims journey, right? So after that, it turned into a very boring, plain email thread, like an email conversation with the insurers TPA. I had to upload 16 documents. There were multiple rounds. Also long gaps in between the replies. So they actually said, "Hey, yeah, we come back to you in 6 business days." So they missed this SLA twice while filing the claim. And it took 23 days in order to get a full solution or like resolution of the claim. And this is considered good by many insurer SLAs, right? But this really felt structurally broken, and it's not just inefficient in a way. So it's basically a document scavenger hunt, and it's really a pity because you have this world-class digital experience of the bank, and then this really outdated claims experience.
To be fair, that is 2 years ago, right? I would maybe I'm on thin ice here, but I would say if you have a nice FNOL agent, it doesn't have to be an agent actually. It is on a chat GPT basis, you have a nice, smarter, not very last generation, a nice modern chatbot who has basically all the information. What do we need for information, and keep asking for it and get it in and basically extract the information you need. That can be made much better with not super much effort, right? What I'm interested is what comes after, what is behind the curtain, and are there any dead bodies to be found there as well, where you say, okay, guys, we need to clean out this one.
Maybe I would just interject here on the scenario that Mike was describing. Today, the customer sends an email. This email has to be received by some person, understood, and then responded. That part cannot be done by the AI alone. That's where the agent part come in, where you need to have the recipient, you have to be able to send the email, you need to be able to draft the email and get the information and back and forth. And so, like you're saying, also, the bits and pieces can be done today using GPT, right? You could go to GPT, upload your policy, ask your questions, and get the answers. The real challenge here becomes how to make this part of an inherent process, how to make sure that all the data goes to the agent. The agent, when I say the agent, the people, they have a good way to be able to assess and justify, respond to the customer, how this data can be stored within their records. All this extrapolation becomes part of the challenge. Today, if you look at the very simplistic system, they send you an email. What the client or what the operator does, let's call them operators so we don't confuse. The operator download the attachment, save them in a folder, or upload them to their CRM or any system they have internally. All of this mechanism is done manually, and so that's kind of where that's where the under the hood operations come into place.
That is where it starts to become interesting for me, how to save the right thing. Because everything else, the interaction with the customer, to have an open chat bot, I think let's leave email aside. With a chatbot, hey, you send it up to me. Hey, you sent me the wrong, this is from your wife or so. I think this can be done fairly easy. But now when you say, hey, how to save it in the right places and what to do then with it, this is where it starts to get interesting for me.
I would not oversimplify I mean, I think, Ron, what you're assuming is that you can close the entire FNOL loop in one go. And it
No, you
might
can't.
not be the case that you have it in one go. So I think that kind of, whenever it breaks,
Totally.
following up on the right cadence for email, non chat. So I think that's just as you map out such a process, where there's just a lot of decisions, tools, downloads, abstraction, you kind of see it like on a chart or something. You're just aware, like, okay, that is what all of our people are doing the whole time. And I don't think we're even talking about the edge cases here. So I think that is where I believe that agentic aspect to it starts driving down just the cost of repetitive manual processes and simple decisions.
Totally. And that might differ from product line to product line, probably.
Totally. Totally.
It does, and I guess as well here, this is where our modular approach kind of comes into place. So it's not like we have a core system that is going to be ripped and replaced per se, but we are building on top of what is already existing. So some insurers, MGAs, or whoever we talk to, TPAs, they may want to keep several pieces of the value chain within their environment and keep using them. So we are just plugging in where is the biggest pain point, for example. We can do the full claims, the claims process if that is required, if that is necessary. But I think our strength is really to come in and it's like, okay, guys, you usually have like what, 16, 20 documents to validate. Okay. You spend a lot of time chasing customers for the right information, etc. This is something that we can automate. And then yeah, really the edge cases still have to be done by a human in the loop, etc. So we are really only automizing what's needed. And based on the conversations and the workshops that we have with the future partners, we then design and make the concept for the agent. Does that make sense?
It does, and if it sounds too good to be true, so what's the hiccup then? Why do these things fail? Why doesn't everyone just introduce? Because that makes sense, right? Everything that you've just described, I don't think there's anyone standing there. Nope, that's what I want my organization to do. I want them to do needless manual work that doesn't add any value and piss off our customers. I would put a slight caveat. I think not there is a certain level of potential. And I think that is interesting. How much friction do you want in certain claims and how that actually improves your loss ratios? But let's just assume that we don't have that, that a great customer experience is great for the insurer and the portfolio as well. What are the biggest problems? And or maybe phrase it even differently to say, unless this exists, so, from an insurer point of view, solve this first. Otherwise, you're not AI agent ready on. And for the sake of argument, let's continue on the travel claims case to not kind of jump around with different claims if that's easier. But like, what's preventing this in practice?
I think you threw like six questions in the same time, but let's try to decorticate them. I would say the first thing, just to keep to give perspective, AI today is an environment that has been evolving really, really fast over the past couple of years. And so it's challenging for leadership to say what they want because they don't know what they can do. And they don't know by the time the whole thing trickle down, things have changed already. So it's very challenging, especially like for large organizations to build bigger projects because halfway things will change. And we built a project last year. Over the 6 months of the project, we've changed twice our directions because we had to replace this agent. Gemini came up with new capabilities that we found were more effective. So that's one of the reasons, and also that's what drove us to be really modular from the get-go. But I think, if you want to take a standard project that has been running, piloting internally and doing good results, when you go to production, you're going to face three main issues. First, data is becoming much, much larger. So you have to have much better optimized queries, different ways to access data, different ways to categorize your data from the data that are ephemeral, and all the way to the data that change once a day, once a week, that you can process differently. So the way you look at data, the way you process it is very different.
Why? Why is that different to how I'm doing it? I just try to understand. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, that's thank you for helping me in the transition here. So basically, if you need to know if the policy of run is valid today, you can run an API call, check the expiry date, and come back to it, right? But you need to do it on every single moment because you need to know if it's valid now, as opposed to Ron's policy. Ron's policy, they change every 6 months. So we know whenever there's a new policy that we can regenerate it and rehash it and reorganize it to its way to consumed by the AI. And so what you can do when you can go through the whole policy, you can vectorize the data and make it more easy for the AI to consume. You cannot do that with the expiry because you need them right now. You need real-time information. And so this kind of classification needs to be thought of ahead of time. Also, if you're looking at the customer, um, in your pilot, you have maybe 100, 200, 500 customers. When you go into production, you have thousands of them, with a lot more data that you need to join and break together. And so when you're building your pilot, you want to build a pilot that is future proof, that is stress tested, that has been validated against edge cases. And all these challenges, yeah, go ahead.
so I was just so when you said if things are accessible through an API, then and I have an API, then problem solved, right? You just need from an insurer perspective, you just call the stuff at the right point. Because I already have that.
No,
Am I hearing, am I hearing that actually as part of an AI project, because not very many things are real-time accessible through an API, and actually the way data is presented and queried will create, I don't know, context issues, pricing issues, that part of that preparation is almost, and I don't even know what's the right technical term to how to prepare that data if they do not have real time, if not all of the data is, if all of the data is real time accessible through a REST API, I would say that the insurer has done their work for the agent to pull that data, or what else is missing?
I'm gonna have to say I don't want to geek out too much here, but it's a good misconception because obviously the APIs are built for a purpose, right? So they're optimized to deliver data in a structure that is exactly what you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Today, so what one thing you would need to do is you would have to expand a lot the capability that you have through your APIs and the way you're providing data. So let's say you want to provide your customer with their expiry date. You have another one with the premium value, the premium cap of the customer. So these are different fields that when you go through a standard process, or like what we used to in the web, you have an API call that returns things needed for that page. Today, when you're going through a conversation, nobody knows what you're going to ask. And so let's say I want the customer that has filed their complaint yesterday. That's a new AP, that's a new query that you need to generate for this use case. So having the APIs alone is not sufficient. Also having
Because they don't have, because the question is not because they don't have all of the potential data that could be surfaced in an accessible real-time manner as the conversation goes the way it goes. Like if I had, for example, I might not actually have policy cap in an API because why would I? Because that's actually surfaced, I don't know, on a visual decision frame, or maybe it's front coded in the FNOL or something. Then so one aspect, the primary acts, one of the works is to actually go through all of the interactions that the AI agent at its point of time is expected to do, surface all of the information that we don't want to have it make up or ask the customer that needs to be kind of inherent, and almost create um, and then decide which one of these, how often are these updated or not, which ones are just kind of static, and you kind of need to build a little data project where you I don't know, dump these things in just for the agent, and then it updates the ones that are needed. Is that what I'm hearing, or does now the insurer need to go, yep, maybe you'll just get very good data because BI hasn't been around for a while and haven't been beaten that dead horse. So what happens then? How can they solve this?
Um, so I think that, the way you're describing it also here is basically you're trying to limit the agent. In the end, the agent has to be able to take its own decisions and to be able to be sort of, not say free, but be open. And so when we do when we lock it in a very sequential way, these are all the things that people might ask you, and this is what you need to do. That's basically taking the AI out of the AI. That's beating the purpose, right? But also maybe to give a more concrete example, and that's the last thing I would take about that, is basically when you need data in real time, what is happening is that sometimes you need to join tables together. And when you join these tables in real time, it's time consuming, energy consuming, but primarily it's time consuming. And when you're doing a real conversation with an agent, you can't afford to wait that long to see what's going to happen.
Okay.
That's the quick answer to your 2 points.
No, please, you, Nick. Otherwise, I would love to switch lanes to basically, I have with certain products, we have to do claims here. And I'm asking myself, listening to you, actually a very simple question. Which processes in the claims process would I automate, ideally with your help, which not? And what do I get out of it?
Before we go into that, because I would like to have a
please. That's
one
why
summary
I said
of the questions to say. So
round it off.
could you just what are the main problems? It's the data isn't there. That's what we've kind of went down the rabbit hole. What are the others? So we just kind of wrap that up so we can have that question in one summary form and answer, because I feel we've just talked about data and there were other things that you talked about that we didn't get to. Was it just a data question?
No, so I think that, from a conceptual part, I would say it's not an AI project. It's a tech project using AI. And that makes a whole difference in the way you approach the architecture and the problem. And this is also why a lot of the purely AI project fail, because they focus out on what the AI can do. And they disregard that actually there's really real engineering to be made, especially when you go to a large scale. Data is a challenge. Clean data is a bigger challenge, and that's something that's been already identified when companies started using BI tools like you mentioned. Oh, but we use different terms in different departments, different short description, and so on. And so that's all a big challenge. Cost becomes a big player, and performance, because in a standard web-based process, you have the page load and you have transition between pages, which gives you a lot of leeway, and you have predefined set. I know what I'm asking, I know what I'm getting, I can manage my load. When you go over to a conversational AI, for example, you need a lot more data, a lot faster, and with very little boundaries, so to say.
I think that,
leave it at that.
No, I think, and that's because it's not an AI project; it's tech project using AI. I think for the purpose of this conversation, I'm not going to open up the can of worms about that it's a change management project and that there's other things. Let's leave that aside. But I would say there might be some further layers that complicate things, especially if you have a human in the loop. But Ron, sorry, to your question, could you just restate the question?
Yes, make it very simple. I'm an operations. I totally agree with you. Claims is a wonderful thing to optimize because there's a lot of commercial potential in there. How do I start? Which processes do I automate with you? Which should I not touch?
And may I just add to that? And is there timing sequence, Chris, so we don't run in, or do we think that the AI, let's say, model update sequence is getting slower because there might be something, so yeah, anything that you ship needs to be shipped within 3 months because otherwise you'll just kind of start updates. Is that relevant, or is it just depends on the process level of where to start? So
Sorry,
what I meant is, Ron stated, which process do I start? What I think is also how quickly do I need to ship something, irrespective of the process. So I'll break the project apart because of the cadence of updates and change of Gemini does something, then Claude does something else, so that you don't have to have a very long project that then gets updates as the underlying models that we're all using update and changes the type of tooling that you use.
Let's start with the process.
No, I'm thinking if I want to talk it from a technical part or more from an insurance perspective.
Insurance.
Mark.
Yeah, well, I believe you need to really dive deep into the respective processes and understand which one has the highest impact. And I guess as well, be bold and not necessarily start with a process that is on the sideline that has very low volume, etc. So you can start with a process where you have huge manual claims activities around that is paired with a lot of monkey work using different tools, different functions, etc. And really sit down together with the partner and understand, do we have an ROI? Do we have a baseline? Oh, sorry.
Let's make it specific.
Okay.
I'm in building insurance, and we understand that we can optimize claims here, right? So this is where we are, and we say, well, we heard about these people, they have claims pilot, should be a good thing, talk to them. And they asked me, okay, how does that now really go? What processes are you in? Shouldn't we just change the entire thing or just selected ones? I'm not talking tech yet, but right now I need to tell them what's the story. Are we having some small construction sites, or do we close down the entire site for some time, which would probably not be ideal?
Okay, so fully understood. Thanks for the explanation. As I mentioned already, we're not necessarily rip and replacing core systems. And I guess all
that will be the tech part. Are you an additional layer, or
yes.
how do you plug in? I'm talking to all the other people. They have nothing to do with tech. They don't care. They know these guys will figure it out on the tech dimension.
Let me tell you what we did. So when we started Claims Pilot, and Mark, you can give the details here, but basically we've put a table with all the steps of the process, the time it takes for people to the operational time. So there's I think operational time, operational waiting time, and cost. And then based on that, so I mean, we took this based on the experience that we have here in the building. We would do something very similar with the team to understand the full the full scope of the process and identify where we have more waiting time, where we have more operational time, and where we can cut costs. To be very specific in construction, I think it would be the same as in travel, no?
Yeah, I guess so. Like in total, we were having a look at 16 different steps that you would usually encounter within an insurance claim. And so again, we had a look at the entire process to really say, all right, we can do the entire process, but also we were looking in which sub process or which different piece in the value chain is really the most tedious, the most painful one. And we can basically give a proper overview about what, as an average, which kind of piece in the value chain costs how much, what kind of impact does it have on the total turnaround time to the customer, operational costs, etc. And based on this, we can give recommendations as to which kind of process or which kind of claim from which insurance product we should maybe get started first, and how we approach the entire project.
So what would you need from us? So basically the process X-ray of today's processes.
Yeah.
You would need this from us, right?
Yeah.
Or is
total
this
mapping, for
something
example.
where you do
So
go in and say, okay, what's your process? Let's have a quick look at it. Check, check, check. Okay, these are the processes to take out or replace or improve. What do
Yeah, so
you need from us as the
we operate
patient?
today, that we start actually with the workshop. I mean, we have some, some what we have building blocks that we can use either to create agents, to create tools through the interface. But then we have a general understanding of how it works through claims palette in the specific travel insurance. And we can port this information along with the key stakeholders that are affected by the claims process within your organization, to be able to depict this whole flow. Ideally, you would like to sit down not only with decision makers, not only with the financial people, but also with the people doing the work, because these are the ones that are being, one, the most affected, two, the most scared, and three, the most knowledgeable. As much as you want to say the claims agent knows exactly what takes the most time for them, what is the biggest pain in their day-to-day, and where we can have improvements. And so the idea would be to have all these people on a table or a virtual table, and then map things out, validate with them, and then go surgical, like you were saying earlier. That's the part of the process I want to attack. If we take the example that we were giving earlier, today your company works with emails. Great. So I don't want to change anything from my customer. I want the customer to keep on sending me emails. I want to have the bouncing board being an AI agent. So it would receive this email, it would read it, it would check your policy, it would see, okay, these are documents you still need, and send you an email back. That way, you basically didn't change much in your process, neither on the people's end nor on the agents or operators' end, but you made it smoother, you made it faster, and you made your customer relatively happier without having to take any critical decision. Once you have that point in place, now you know, okay, I've got some success here. My team is being happier. They're seeing that obviously how do you call them? The happiness index is increasing. So let's move to the next phase. And to answer Nikolaus' question earlier, I would say it goes in phases. That's kind of the mentality behind the agile product creation. Is able to iterate fast, validate with the stakeholders and with the team internally, and also get the small wins, because the small wins are what make people at ease, and that's the whole change management chapter.
So what I found really interesting from your question was actually to say that of course you map out the thing with the highest impact, but actually you have some design choices to make, because actually the impact that saves the most amount of cost might not be the same that speeds up the customer experience the most. That might not be the one that changes internal processes the most.
Of course.
And so I think it's some guidance around what are you trying to optimize for, and then some things are clear winners on all dimensions, but some are not. And I think that is like a good first step to take into consideration that it's depending on those priorities, the cadence of where you start might be different.
Plus, do we get a clear recommendation from your side, or are these decisions we're basically left alone with?
No, definitely. So basically, I think, okay, I'm going to answer both at the same time. So the first thing is that every organization have their own metrics, right? So some people, like if you look at cars, some have a strong engine, other are fast, other are pretty. And you as an organization, you have also your core values that you want to try to strengthen towards. That's why the focus or the first step will be different on the organization level. So part of understanding the process, understanding also what is important for you as an organization. And based on that, we will provide you with recommendations with with the backed up reasoning. So it's not just we tell you to do this, full stop. Based on what you told us and what we think is important to you, we would begin with this because there's be less, maybe a bit more development time, but it seems that the IT team is pretty excited about this. We want to get the customer team on board, show them some value, and then move to the others. So it's not a clear-cut decision, and that's why also it becomes a result of this, this collaboration with the client. We co-design. That's kind of the idea. We know the tools, we know the process, we know how to make things, but we don't know how to make things for you. So it's like when you go to a tailor and they go and they stand out and you take your measurements and they try to see if you like it with a I don't forget the word now, but it's basically this design kind you would like to have.
I was just conscious of time. Maybe a way to try to get some further insights into out of you is in your journey. What counterintuitive insights, what learnings did you have? How, what has changed the way you would approach this now? So this might be some, not maybe cautionary tales or some shortcuts for someone who might also start on their AI agentic journey and maybe benefit from the years, months, whatever of advantage, but not stating the obvious. Plan well, have priorities, etc. Taking the teams like that. Where was like, yeah, I thought this would work, but it didn't, and why? Oh wow, this worked. I never thought this would work. Great,
You're referring to actual operations and how the system works, or rather in our endeavor as creating AI agents and trying to implement them in insurers and MGAs and TPAs.
Let's say, whichever answer is more relevant to someone who also wants to roll out AI agents, but is not AI agent, irrespective of who they're doing this with, just a kind of more like a general thing.
Okay, I have one insight. I think that's so. This came from a project we were working on that had already an interface, and then they wanted to agentize it, to change it towards a voice conversation. And the biggest learning here is that you don't build the same for voice. You rebuild it from scratch, because the way people approach the users, like the user are used to put in info 1, 2, 3 next, info 3, 4, 6 next. And apparently it turned out that these people, they don't want to do this. They know everything they need to fill. They just have a sentence. Just let me tell my sentence, get the info out of it, tell me what's missing. Don't get me through, okay, so what's your date of birth? When did you have the accident? Etc., etc., etc. So the way you perceive a project is basically a clean slate. You have to go back to a clean slate and challenge all the assumptions you made initially.
Cool.
I think that
is
would be
that
for me
for
the
voice? That would be the same for voice as for chat, or would you?
It would be the same for voice and chat. Now,
in terms of the rebuild,
because the idea is that basically you put down all the walls, and so you don't have these lines. I mean, you have the lines on the floor, but you don't need to follow them. You have this freedom, and you have to use the freedom. Now, when it comes to voice specifically, voice is more challenging because it's people feel the wait time. So handling wait is a bigger challenge. When you have a type and you see your agent is typing and sometimes you wait 10, 15, 20 seconds, you're just waiting. You're on the web screen, you're used to that. When you have a silence on the tone, it's very annoying. And so there's different ways to handle that, either by giving them the classical let me look that for you, or I'm waiting for that. Or there's different, the different mechanism where you can interrupt these mechanism, these conversations to make it feel more human. That's maybe the most practical part on the voice and text.
Ron, any thing you need to get off your chest?
I would love to come back to the one point Mark has now mentioned, I think 3 times. You're not replacing a core system. I I actually did not expect somebody helping me automate claims to replace my core system. What I always understood is you're basically putting an AI agent layer on top of everything what I'm doing. Is that a correct picture in my mind, or?
Yes, yes, exactly. This is, yeah, we call it surgeon-like, light touch and modular. The reason
Well,
for
surgeon means you are cutting into my otherwise existing body. I thought you put a layer on top. That is just putting on a sweater or a hoodie. That is
yes,
different, right? That is
yes,
surgeons.
yes, exactly. A surgeon can cut, but can also put
Well, and
something in,
different
right?
shops I go to, right? Whether I
Yes,
go to, I
yeah.
don't know, a man's outfitter or into a clinic. These are also my feeling would be very different.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, absolutely. So really, you're right. So we're a layer on top of the existing system, and there's a certain reason for why we do that. It really has to do with the fact that it's time to market and time to value has a big impact on this decision. So. If we are modular, the adoption makes it a little bit easier than replacing the core system, right? So if you replace the core system, that equals a multi-year project and also multi-expensive everything, right? So you have these long sales cycles. Things can go wrong over time. You might get a different priority of the business partner, and so this is why we are geared up for a quick and easy yes from our business partners to actually get started, right? Because truth be told, these long, huge projects, they may die eventually, or they may stall. We all have seen it, I believe. But this also makes it a little bit harder sometimes because we need to integrate into whatever exists at the moment on the partner side, different claims platforms or different tools and APIs as we have talked about enough today, and maybe call centers, etc. So, and we need to prove, and Chris mentioned this before, we really need to prove very, very quickly that there's value. So this is sort of the setup, I guess.
But I'll add to this, Ron, that the if you put a layer on top of it just plainly, sometimes this will increase your latency. So this is kind of a wrapper, and then you're running the thing internally, then you're running them through the upper one, which is not what we necessarily want. So, but when we're using your APIs, when you're using your system, but we're changing the interface, then this is kind of a mix between those two. Sometimes
Okay.
you need to create additional APIs or additional interfaces, but we try to minimize these changes so that you don't have like this huge jacket on top of what you have today, but something nice, slim, and that makes you look classy.
Awesome. Um, just conscious of time. Would have loved to go on further, but is there one last thing that you would like to share with the audience that we couldn't touch on during this 1 hour-ish conversation? If so, please do so now before we wrap up.
I guess don't be shy. Really encourage your people to use AI, incentivize and reward automation as a whole. Um, and if you do so, when it is in claims or when it is outside, like non-insurance topics as well, scale horizontally only after you have really mastered the vertical and you have achieved proper KPI metrics that have a real impact on the organization, I guess. That's my last statement, maybe.
I would say that I'm taking this from the startup world, fail fast, and the AI world requires a lot of failure, but fail and learn. So even if you do pilot, make sure that you learn from them, and technology will change, your learnings will still be there, and you'll be able to evolve. On the AI specific front, people use AI today. we're not going to train people to use AI. People use AI, but you have to understand what's their level of literacy, so you can embrace it properly. You'll be surprised how many people use ChatGPT today in their day-to-day tasks, but they use it as a separate, they're on the side, even if they're blocked on by their employers, even they're blocked by all these things. It's there's no way to go against it. It's about embracing it and make sure that it's aligned with your vision, your culture, and so on.
Perfect. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Everyone listening, watching this, looking forward to your comments, and all the best. Have a lovely day.
Thank you, guys. Take it easy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.